Hey Lee, Bynum is very intriguing on many levels. You mentioned, philosophy. What, what do you talk about like philosophy with it? I mean, is he like looking into things like, where his place is in the league, or is this like a broader sense of just
Mm.
what life is in general?
No, he's got this sort of life coach almost named George Mumford, who Phil Jackson has used and hooked him up with, and it's more about kind of unlocking your own potential. He uses a lot of it. He extrapolates a lot of it in terms of basketball, but a lot of it is like when things happen to you that you don't like, undesirable things. How do you react? Because that's been a problem for him. And look, it was a problem last year with the Berea incident in Dallas, this year in Houston. I mean, he is still, and he would admit this, he is still very much a work in progress. What I like about him is he'll really reflect on that. I mean, if you have him alone, he'll talk about it, his own shortcomings, how he feels on the floor when something happens. He's one of the few athletes who's had injury problems and will tell you point blank that when people come into the lane, he's worried. When people are down on the ground near his knee, he's as worried about it as any Laker fan, and still very apprehensive about it. So, I kind of appreciate his candor, but then again, you see things that just don't add up. You've got this kind of guy who's sort of like in high school, for instance, he always hung out with little kids, people who weren't even players on the team. He was in the chess club and stuff like that. It doesn't add up then when you see this guy driving a Ferrari 100 miles per hour down Sepulveda, or tearing his shirt off after he, gives a forearm shiver to JJ Barea. He's a complicated dude, and it's hard to put him in a box.
I almost wonder if his outspokenness is a bad thing. I mean, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I was saying, his immaturity, challenging the coach, these are bad things. But if he wants to be more, and he's
Yeah.
clearly talented, and he's bigger than almost everybody in the league and stronger, how does he find that balance? And is it even necessary to find that balance? If he becomes the best player on the Lakers, shouldn't he want to demand all of the responsibilities that a star would have?
Yeah, and I don't think the Lakers knew that when they got him. I don't. I think they saw the physical gifts, but they didn't really know that hunger, to be great at something. And what I kind of found when I was talking to him was someone who loves to tinker and loves to kind of improve things. And I think with time, he almost views himself like one of his little computers and toys that he's always kind of working on and trying to make better. Like I talked to this guy who helps him build these computers, right? And he builds every year he builds a new computer that he's trying to make better and better. And eventually, I almost think he's seen himself that way. I know that might be a little deep, but I think I think that was kind of what he was getting at by telling me that story. And I think part of that is Kobe. I think he's been around Kobe, and that's kind of stoked his own hunger because really all the Lakers had to go on with that was this one interaction they had with him before the draft. They kind of were showing him pictures of great Lakers centers. And, they kind of saw him peak. They saw him kind of be like, I want to be on that wall. But that was really the only moment they had that showed any desire to be great. I mean, really, at that point, all he was this kind of reclusive kid in New Jersey who really didn't play any high level
You know,
basketball. So, I mean, you're right. It's like you've got somebody whose intensity has been sort of a surprise in a good way and a bad
in
way for the
juxtaposing
Lakers.
him with McGee, you can tell they both clearly, they go about it very different ways. McGee is very clumsy, and you almost see him still trying to figure out how his own body works, whereas Bynum, you say is cautious about his own body
Yeah,
and isn't too reckless, and yet they
that's
try
right.
very hard in very different ways and have very different results. Do you think McGee can maybe not get to Bynum's level, but get to a level where he understands exactly what he's doing on the court enough to be a 35-minute a game guy where you're not just laughing at him every other play?
Um, I do. I'm not sure. I mean, it's like he's at one of those stages of development where it could go either way. It feels like, with Bynum, his athleticism isn't what McGee's athleticism is. This is like from what people tell me. I don't pretend to be an expert on that stuff, but Bynum has great hands. He's got good feet. they've really, the beauty of when the Lakers got him is, as Kareem said at the time when I talked to him, he said there were no bad habits to unlearn because he had no habits. It was a complete blank slate. With McGee, there are some scuffs on that slate. There are some things that he has to now unlearn, and learn again. And you can't measure the heart. Bynum obviously had the heart to get better, and when you talk to him, it comes across. McGee, his personality is such that I can't tell you if I think he really wants to get better or not. People who coach him say he does. I'm skeptical of that, just because some of those plays, look, I'm like anybody. I look at some of those plays and I just wonder how that can happen to somebody who really, really wants to be great. But the athleticism is better even than Bynum. So, it makes you wonder, a guy like could he be like DeAndre Jordan, for instance? Maybe like Tyson Chandler. I was just looking up. In Tyson Chandler's fifth season, he only scored 5 points a game. He was booed. He had five. I think he shot 50% from the line. But Tyson Chandler has kind of a spark in him that I don't think many of us have seen in JaVale McGee except on YouTube.
Really awesome stuff, man. We appreciate the stories. Hopefully, we can have you on again soon to do this. This was great.